Welcome to Middle Fingers Up. I am your host, Kieran, and today's episode is one of those it's good to Gup Shups, just a little conversation, sometimes little thoughts I have going on before they turn into full-blown episodes. And something special about today is I have a guest that's joining me for Gup Shup. And our guest today, many of you are familiar with. This is her third time coming on. So third time's a charm. That's right. She's given the little, before we bring her in though, I just want to set up the conversation and give a little context. I think context is super important. And here we go. So where do I start? I think I will start so 6 months ago, I went to my doctor after gaining weight really quickly. And like a lot of weight for me. And within the 6 months, nothing had really changed in terms of my diet and my exercise. Both I look after with pride. I take care of myself. I love to eat well as I love to move, work out hard. It's part of my mental health, all of that lovely stuff. But I had all of a sudden put on this 20 pounds. And so I didn't really get where it was coming from. And so I went to my doctor naturally, as some of us would. And the advice that I got was simple, which was eat less, move more. And I sadly, I don't think many of you listening right now are going to be shocked. I wish it was the opposite. I wish everyone would be so shocked. Like, I wish, how dare your doctor say that? And the sad thing is we're not shocked because so many of us are getting this message every day. Literally, my guest and I were having this conversation before we start recording, and she herself used the same 4 words. What we've been taught, the eat less, move more. So this is something that we are up against all the time. And I remember sitting there in the office with my doctor thinking, fuck, like my body is so exhausted. I don't know if I have it in me to move anymore. And I don't want to starve myself. Like, I don't want to be starving all day long because I've done that before. I've talked about this in previous episodes where non-diagnosed, but definitely symptoms of eating disorder stuff that I had growing up. And so that's not the place that I want to go. And so for me, I was already moving. I was already working out regularly, trying to do what you can to take care of yourself. And yet the message was still the same that so many of us hear, which is if your body changes, you must be doing something wrong. And I feel maybe the statement instead of that is something along the lines of, wait a minute, like what has your body been carrying? Or even like, what is your body trying to tell you when we see different symptoms and signs occurring? And I remember thinking in the doctor's office, look, if my body can guide me through not 1, but 2 pregnancies, particularly help me land my plane, safely when I'm delivering and telling me what to do as delivery is happening, I know that my body is communicating now to me as well. This is what our bodies do. They communicate to us. They tell us what to do when to do it. And it's only when we're attuned to it that we start to, I think, pick up the signs. But we have to be aware. We have to be available mentally, emotionally, so that we know what's going on physically. And so for me, I think this conversation today actually came back to me recently when I posted a photo on Instagram stories, and it was during a workout with a friend. And I wrote something along the lines of like, sometimes progress isn't, what the outside looks like, but a lot of the times progress is how you feel. You feel healthier, you feel stronger, you feel crisp, you feel like, oh, you're paying attention to what your body needs more. And so as I mentioned, movement's been a big part of my mental health for years. So the trainer that I was working out with, Vishal, he's from V Raw Aesthetics. Actually, he's been on an episode too. He actually works with a lot of South Asian women, with a lot of women that are perimenopause, menopause, postpartum, hormonal shifts, women that maybe are wanting to unlearn some poor eating and movement habits, wanting to relearn. Look, how we worked out in our 20s is going to be different in our 30s, 40s, and so on and so on. And not all of us know how to catch up and recalibrate in that way. But I'm going to just like out myself for a second. So this kind of stage that I'm in is realizing how much, yes, our bodies change, but I think we're just not really taught to zone in on like, why, what's happening, how to have a conversation with our body. And so just a little generational reflection, like when I looked at the photo Vishal posted, I struggled to repost it because from my shell, from the outside, it's not the Kieran that I know and what my body usually looks like. And I kid you not, I went to this place of like, shit, what if, people that have known me from back in the day see this and think, oh my God, she's let go, or what's going on with her, or God, this chick's lazy, or whatever we say to ourselves. And often we're taught to say to other women in particular. So it took a lot out of me to be like, fuck that, post this, because it's not really, what's going on the outside. It's where I'm at, what I'm feeling, and the pride that I have to show up and keep doing the work that I know so many of you are doing alongside of, exactly what I'm talking about. And so growing up in the 80s and 90s, the messaging, or maybe we call it the misogyning, is often about such brutality towards our bodies. So we're taught to critique each other. We're taught to critique ourselves, too big, too small, too thin, not white enough, all these kinds of things that we fight with. And so when our bodies change, many of us automatically assume something must be wrong because we've been bred to think that that's what happens. And maybe our bodies aren't actually failing us. Maybe actually, but whatever word you want to put in there, it's that our bodies are responding to something. When I have a peanut allergy, I puff up. My body's telling me something. So in other ways, my body is telling me something's going on. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just means that I got to be curious about it instead of going to the place of hide it, something's terrible, okay, I'll eat less and starve myself, all these other things that we've been taught, diet culture, which we're going to talk about. And so this is what brings us to today's conversation, because sometimes the biggest shifts in how we understand our bodies doesn't come from a lab or a study. They come from lived experience. They come from conversations. And our guest, as I said, she's been here. This is her third time. She was last here in episode, one of the last times she was here was episode 134, What's in Your Tiffin, Feeding Your Inner Child and Finding Balance in Parenting. We did a back to school special. If you haven't heard that or watched that episode, highly recommend you do. And she was also here on episode 140, where she talked about confidence really comes in when you sit with your weaknesses and go to that dark place that often we find the light in. So every time my guest and I talk, these conversations go somewhere thoughtful, somewhere honest. So I'm so excited to welcome back Shuraya. Here we are. Thank you for being patient and let me talk. Welcome. How we doing?
Thank you so much, Karen. It's always great to reconnect with you and talk about all these important things that we women should definitely highlight and be reminded. Even as we both are, trying to navigate our weight gain, weight loss, whatever not, I feel like we always have that social responsibility to speak and to really set that reminder for ourselves, and because our mind can really gaslight ourselves. So I feel like these conversations are so honest that it's a great reminder for all of us. So thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you messaged, because how you got here is you messaged me as soon as I posted that, and you're like, oh, I get what you're saying here. I have my own story. And so through that, we were like, okay, let's come together and do what we should do. As you said, we have responsibility, share these stories, have these conversations. So other women like us and other men as well, and our children, all these sorts of different, folks that make up our communities can also be part of these conversations. So before we start though, you have a fantastic business that is blowing up. So tell us about your Shuraya's Kitchen. How is it going? And how and where can people get in touch if they want to book a class, which highly recommend.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm the founder of Shuraya's Kitchen. Of course, it's in it's in the name. But what I do is I host a monthly cultural, that's really tied to my roots, which is the Bangladeshi cuisine. I just invite strangers, the locals of Calgary, to come into my home on a monthly basis and experience what it's like to be in a Bangladeshi home and indulge in our cooking and our feast. And main thing, what people really keep coming for is the community.
Yeah.
It's how they feel after leaving my cooking experience. Because although my cooking class is not hands-on, it's a really demo. So you start thinking it could be a lot of boring stuff. Maybe you just watch there, and it's a lot of engagement there. People get to share about their childhood stories, their food stories, their travel stories. We talk about parenting, histories. Oh my God, like everything. And it creates such a strong community sense of belonging for me and for others. So I decided to make it I'm just going to full-time focus on this and welcome more guests so they can experience how it feels like to, be part of a community.
I love it. I love that. I love everything about it. I've had the privilege of experiencing exactly what you're talking about. You nailed it, because you do walk out being part of a community, learning something that maybe you didn't know, trying something that maybe you wouldn't have gone to a restaurant and tried, all these kinds of things. And the community vibe, like you meet different people. Some people come as a team building, and then some people are just randoms that show up that are meeting each other for the first time. So it's such a cool bonding experience, and everyone contributes. So I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad it's going full time. And highly recommend that people reach out and book a class, book a sessions. I've heard some people say, oh my God, I'm so afraid to cook. So I was reluctant, and I'm like, dude, me too. But it's nothing about cooking, which is weird because it is a cooking class, but only when you go there, you will learn and understand what I'm saying, maybe, because it's more than that. It's more than going and learning how to cut onions and, cut vegetables or whatever. That's the back burner, I guess, of the whole thing. So
absolutely.
Highly recommend people check you out. Did you tell us where they can?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, www.shurayaskitchen.ca, I have all the classes listed up until May. I will be posting more for June and July. I do have a good news. So I just recently became partners with the Calgary Tourism.
Oh, cool.
So my class will be featured into Calgary Tourism page for all the tourists, for all the visitors of Canada. We have 10 million visitors a year, and who will have access to my authentic cooking experience that will focus on mindfulness and healthy, conscious eating. And so that's a good news. So definitely, if you see my class available, book right in, because it sells out pretty quickly.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Congratulations. I love that. You got that recognition. That's so cool.
Thank you.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So fill up. So we're talking about our bodies and re-scripting, relearning how to have a relationship with our body, essentially. And so maybe where you and I can kind of start is childhood messaging, because a lot of where we're at now comes from messages from childhood. So when you think about your childhood, what kind of messages did you absorb about bodies and healthy growing up? And not necessarily what people and which people said what directly, but just generally messages that you received as a child about your body or the woman's body.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first phrase that I can definitely mention is, I think we all know this phrase, which is, in order to live a healthy or maintain a healthy body, it's always 80% diet and 20% exercise. So we all heard about that, but nobody talks about 100% of the mental work that requires for you to be able to focus on those two things, which is healthy eating and exercise. So nobody mentions about the mental load and mental work. So I think that is definitely something that I would like to flip over, the idea of, for you to maintain that or recognize that 80% is diet and 20% exercise has to do so much more than that. It's more mental, internal work. Like you said, it's not about moving more, eating less, because we don't, and just like you, I also don't like the fads or the trends that comes, or starving, the intermittent fast. It's great. It works for a lot. But I feel like if you're just looking into these content and jumping onto it, it's not the right way to go. it's more about tuning into your symptoms and your signals that your own body is telling you is number one priority. So yeah, that's one of the phases for sure I would like to focus on. Yeah.
That's so well said, because I agree in so many ways that you're right. In order to match the working out or the eating well, like we have to look at our own patterns, and we all have these patterns, when we're stressed, when we're maybe drinking, we're traveling, we're doing all these kinds of things that get in the way to stay consistent. And then some of us binge, some of us don't. So there's all these things that come up. You have a fight with your partner. Do you go to the kitchen right away? Like what are sort of the things that happen that we try to fulfill ourselves in a way that's actually not fueling ourselves? So I agree that it does take a lot of like awareness in, okay, I got to be conscious about what I'm going to choose to eat and not. So when we look at parenting, now that you're raising two children, you have a son and daughter, like what kind of often reflections or what comes about the things that you inherited that you hope to unlearn in your parenting with them? Like, what do you want them to grow up knowing about their relationship with their bodies?
Yeah, it's really just again, it's not about finishing the plate. Because I think growing up, that was such a disrespect, and not just disrespect for the person who served you the food, but also to your body. Like, you don't have to finish the plate in order to show respect to the other person. But what about my own? If my body feels like I have had enough food, I do not. That's one thing for sure. I tell my kids, if your body's telling you you're done for today, you're done. You don't have to finish it. And that's one. And of course, the eating healthy habits has to do with, again, what our body requires. How colorful is it? It's not about gaining weight. Oh, don't eat this because it makes you fat. Because growing up, that's exactly what I heard. Oh, don't eat cereal at 8 p.m. You're going to be fat. No, it's what it is. How will our body react to it if we do ingest that in whatever time is more important than getting fat and losing weight?
Yes.
So I talked about a lot of colorful food and how balanced it is, and how much we enjoy eating it too. Yeah. And now I can definitely trust my kid to go out with his friends and not think about, oh, my mom said not to eat that. No, that's not what I want him to have his own thought process before he makes that conscious decision, what he's going to feed his body. So we talk a lot, and we as mothers, we all try our best, right? And these are the two things that I definitely remind them constantly, that, you're not in a pressure to please me. It's more about tuning into,
And you know what? That's so well said, because as you were talking, it brought me back to when our babies hit that 6 month, and those of us that have babies and we're introducing solids, and then, now they're at 8 months and they know what they like and they're eating. We're taught that our job as a parent is to ensure that we're providing the nourishment, the time that we're providing it, but actually the baby decides when they're done. We know our baby throws a spoon, moves their head, like when they're done, they're done. And can you imagine shoving the spoon in their mouth over, like, and so we trusted them when they were little. And then something, changes along the way, and we're like, no, you got to eat. And I so agree with you. It's like, you want to educate your children with what is healthy, what is fuel, what will help you in the morning before you go to school, so that you can learn properly. And I feel very privileged that we can do that. And then, but it doesn't mean you can't have the sweets and stuff. Like, kids burn that shit, like tomorrow. But it's what my son did the other day, which was, oh wait, before I put that cookie in my mouth, I haven't ate all day. I'm going to start with like fuel. And I was like, damn, that's amazing. Because I still at my age struggle and would put 16 cookies in my mouth before going to whatever, So I love what you said. It's like educating them, and then they have to make that conscious decision without giving them some kind of body image problem. I'm teaching you, I'm educating you to eat healthy, and then now I'm overdoing it, and it's a body conscious issue where my child is so worried about, oh, I'm going to gain weight, or, oh, I'm not going to look good, or whatnot. Like, where do you think the line in parenting is with education versus creating a complex for body image issues?
Yeah. I think as parents, that's our responsibility to tune into their feelings as well. if we're sensing that our child is becoming irritated, more agitated, when we mentioned about, oh, you shouldn't be having that, you shouldn't be, we should tune in to why. Maybe then, honestly, if you just from a curious mind ask them, why does that bother you? They themselves will tell you, oh, it's because I don't know when's the last time we had ice cream together. And so what I would do is grab that ice cream bucket from the freezer after dinner, and without putting it in a bowl, here, I will give you a spoon. I'll give you a spoon.
Yeah.
Let's have the ice cream and talk. So again, it's not about eliminating all these food from their life, because it's all our guilty pleasures. We all need sweets in our life. It's just a part of fun, and but it's also part of connection, right?
Yeah.
So instead of being in our educational, sometimes you gotta also put our guard down and kind of tune into their feelings. So let's see, they seem a little disconnected for me. Let's just relax one day and not talk about it and reconnect again.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that, because when it's parenting, it's understanding like we have the time, so we don't have to put it in their head right now.
No.
It's also like, where are they at? What time of day is it?
Yeah.
Is this the best time to have an educational moment? Or do we need to be bonding and connecting? Because that's going to help later when we have that educational moment. And I think that's such an important point that you made. I want to shift a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about grief, and particularly the grief, your experience with the loss of your father. You've talked about this in previous episodes, and this is kind of the catalyst of this conversation today, when you and I had a little DM the other day. And so there's a whole different part of what we're talking about today that connects, I feel, deeply to our conversation. And you've spoken, as I said before, about losing your father and how that grief impacted many parts of your life. And I'm very grateful for that open and honest conversation. I think you and I both have received a lot of feedback about when you shared in that way, so many people connected saying, oh my gosh, like, it's so cool to hear someone like you talk like that, because it means that I can now openly share and talk about that. So I think that's huge for you to put yourself out there. And so I'm getting to my question. So grief doesn't just live in our thoughts. I'm sure that you can speak to this. It also lives in our body. And so at what point did you start realizing that some of the physical changes you were experiencing might actually be connected to grieving your father?
Yeah, for sure. And it's always devastating when you lose someone you really, really love, who's really part of you. So when you lose that someone that was part of you, you feel like part of you is also lost. Like you feel lost genuinely when you lose one of your parent or your loved ones, because you feel like my part of that is gone. And to regain that it's not overnight. You have to give yourself some grace to kind of pause a little bit there and let your body and your mind process that grief and just kind of ride through that grief, because it comes in waves. But it definitely, I think after I lost him, about 2 to 3 years, I was struggling to reclaim my own body, my mind, and like just feeling lost. It lasted for that long. It did hold me back, like you said, for my business. When I was posting, I wasn't reposting, I wasn't sharing, I wasn't hyping myself up, because I was just posting. But something in me was holding me back, because I was gaining weight, health issues, being diagnosed with hypertension at age 35 that really made me, like, I was in a giving up phase. And I saw no resolution, and being 40 pounds plus gain weight, which was more than my maximum pregnancy time. And that was when I was like, and when my therapist told me once, she was like, because I was just crying, and I said that one phrase, I'm like, I have to be strong. I have to be strong for my kids. She had to hold me and say, you have to be strong for yourself. It's the kids part is, yes, they need a strong mama. They need a strong mom. You need to do it for yourself, not because of that person and that person. I almost gave up on myself. So that was my wake up call, being able to value myself and process it by writing, by therapy, by sharing my stories through community, through you. That is part of processing, right? And so yeah, instead of pushing my grief inside, it was showing it. Externally, it was showing it, but internally, I felt 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So it was all part of that. So after I processed my emotions and I reconnected with my body with simple things as walking, I love walking. I forgot that I love walking. So I did simple goal 10K steps a day, and I was able to be consistent because I love walking. I don't like running. So I told my trainer, don't teach me anything that requires running. He was like, yeah, I won't. And guess what? That worked because again, it's about tuning into your body again. Your body knows what's good for you, how it can be consistent. And that's it. That taught me that taking care of your body is deeply tied to taking care of your emotional well-being. Yeah.
So can I ask you, like, once that realization for you clicked, did it change how you viewed your body during the time of while you were grieving and realizing?
100%. Like when I gained weight, what did I tell myself up in the mirror? Oh, I hate my body. I hate my body. Oh, I couldn't bring myself up front of the mirror and put makeup on confidently because I hated myself. But part of my mind knew that I could not say that in front of my daughter.
Yeah.
So if I cannot say it in front of my daughter, why am I allowing it to say it to myself, even if I was alone in my room? So that itself had to stop, right? It's the practice of telling yourself that I am enough and I'm in a journey and I got this. And that's how it was. Yeah.
So I just want to bring up, like, a lot of what you're describing connects to something researchers have been studying for some time. And there's this well-known study, I don't know if you've heard of it, ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences Study.
No.
Okay, so where I used to work in crisis and trauma, we used to use it as an assessment tool to gauge what kind of trauma our clients were presenting with. And the study is so fascinating because it happened in the 90s. And the way that it came about is that these particular group of doctors were receiving patients who in their medical terms back then would quote unquote say were obese. So they had gained significant amount of weight and they were all being treated for like heart disease, diabetes. They're experiencing a lot of physical symptoms. And they started getting curious about like, what is happening? What's the correlation here? So what ended up happening is that they sort of created this study. And so what they ended up doing was these researchers started asking adults that were presenting to these clinics about their early life adversity. So things like, did they experience early on in childhood emotional neglect, household stress, violence, addiction, instability? There's like a set of 10 questions. And one of the powerful findings from that research was that nearly 2/3 of the participants who answered all these questions were experiencing at least one adverse childhood experience. So that means when they filled this questionnaire, 2/3 of them answered at least one to yes, I experienced violence growing up. Yes, I was sexually assaulted. Yes, one of my parents went to jail. Yes, my parents couldn't feed us. And which right here tells us that stress and adversity are actually much more common than we give it credit, than we talk about, than we want to recognize. And the researchers also found that more adversity, so someone who experienced early in life all these kinds of terrible things, the higher the likelihood of experiencing long-term health. So if as a child, you answered, yeah, these sorts of things happened to me as a kid, then there was going to be a likely link that as you grew, you were going to inherit some chronic health issues as you grew older. And the study in some ways, like I said, came ironically in how it came about. But really, it's like, okay, so it's not just mental health, it's also physical health. And so one reason for this is how the body responds to chronic stress. So even if you think about your own loss with your dad, that was one part of your adulthood life. And while that was in more recent years, there was probably other chronic stress, other maybe
Yep.
traumatic experiences that
Yeah.
you were carrying since a child. And so when it came to managing your father's death, your
Yeah.
capacity to manage this was probably, you adapted, your body adapted to stress. So it may be from the outside, apart from maybe this weight gain, many people thought, oh, look at her functioning so well, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm,
But like
mhm.
you said, internally, there's a whole lot going on. And so
Yeah.
when we experience prolonged stress or grief, the body releases cortisol, and which is
Yeah.
like our primary stress hormone.
Yeah.
And researchers have found that when cortisol stays elevated for long periods of time, it can impact our sleep, our metabolism, there's inflammation, appetite, regulation issues, energy levels, like the list goes on and on and on. So like we said, the body adapts. And then let's all think about that. If we're all listening to this or viewing this, whatever, I think if you receive this checklist, many of us would at least have one. And the higher you scored, and they considered high to be 4 yeses on this checklist or higher, again, there's more worry, but again, you could have one score and that could be really impactful, like sexual assault, one of your parents going to jail, like these kinds of things you can mark as one are severely going to impact you, let alone if you have more and more and more. So I think sometimes we have to remember, like, our body is doing something called protecting us.
Yes.
It's responding to the environment that we live in.
Yeah.
So when you hear all of this about this study and maybe even think about yourself, like, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, that's, again, thank you so much for sharing that. That it totally makes sense. You're right. It's not just about the recent grief experiences. It's from childhood, all these traumatic experiences that we hold in us without, and a lot of them are, still taboo and stigmas, and a lot of it my own mom is not even aware of, and it's something that culturally we have normalized. And now in our adulthood, we're finally finding out that it is like the way our body is reacting to it has to do with more than just what we're eating and what we're working out on. And I think our body isn't working against us. It's all signs, your sleep patterns, you reacting because of eating certain things, tuning into that. And yeah, it's a lot, because I think we have mentioned through the other sessions that even my childhood has been pretty rough. There's a lot of childhood trauma that I carried into my body. And again, in that 2-3 years that I was going through consistent therapy, I had to unreveal all of them, had to process each interactions, each event one by one. She made me go back to that memory and process each event. And I know the bundles of tissue that I had after each session. And that itself is a sign that those tears are a sign that is waiting for it to be processed. And I felt light. I felt so light. I had such a good sleep. I felt like this load off of my shoulders. So yeah, absolutely ignoring it and not talking about it just because it happened 30 years ago. You're okay now. No, it doesn't work that way. It catches up to you, and your body is the number one thing that you already carry will tell you. Yeah.
Totally. Right. And I think even in this research, like, I think it's also important to note, like, there are a lot of research gaps, because something important to acknowledge is that the research that I shared, first of all, there's so much research that's so limited about what we're talking about today. And then a lot of it is limited for us BIPOC community members, people of color, even just us South Asians in particular, because many of the studies that are being conducted on stress and health have been done on Western populations. So when we think of that, we have to also recognize that this means experiences like immigration stress, racism, cultural expectations, intergenerational pressures often are not fully captured in the data.
Yeah.
And so this is again a reminder, like you said, and like we're saying, is why we have to keep talking and sharing and staying curious instead of just making up the same old dialogue that someone told us years and years ago, which is just get over it. Who cares? Stay positive. God will help. Sure, those can be elements that can support us, but we have to do sometimes a little bit more than pray. We have to do something a little bit more than stay positive. We have to recognize the science behind what's happening in our body. So in just stating even like the gaps of for us culturally, what comes to mind for you as we're talking about this?
No, I think there's where do I even begin? There's so much. We're so behind in time. I can't even believe we're finally touching base in these topics. But no, I think just as simple as just prioritizing your well-being, man. That's all. We're all just naturally people pleasers. South Asian communities, women. There's one I will name her because it's my mother-in-law. She used to tell her friends that, oh, my daughter-in-law is so great that after she wakes up, she never sits alone in her room again. She only goes there to sleep. And I used to glamorize that. But that itself, sitting alone by yourself, you're not being selfish. And I think our women have been drilled in our head that setting us, separate time, even as little as 20 minutes. That's how long I take, by the way, to strength train at my home without going to the gym. Strength training for 20 minutes. Really, I'm not going to be selfish if I take that time to make my body just like the way it should be, fit and healthy and energetic, fueled with energies and and I can take that 20 minutes. My daughter is now seeing it. And I think it's all about that, having that role model, right? Growing up, I did not have a woman around me to be that role model for me. So for me, seeing that my daughter is now showing my brothers her muscles, even though she's only 5, but that change itself, I feel like it's a lot. And we just have to break those barriers. That's it. There's too many bad past memories.
Well, and really what you're talking about too is like immigrant survival culture, right? Like, for most of us immigrants and children of immigrants, life was really about survival. We talk a lot about that on these episodes. Our parents were building stability. Their parents were building stability, working multiple jobs, trying to find a place in these systems that aren't built for immigrants. And when you're in survival mode, you don't have the space to be like, oh, what's my nervous system doing today? How is my body responding to stress? So I think many of us first generations, or yourself, you were an immigrant, yet you grew up, you came at a young age and you grew up in the times in the same way that I grew up in the times, where we are the first generation in our communities to actually ask questions, we have the privilege to reflect, to be curious, so that we can break these cycles and build new ones with our own children, or even just with ourselves. So I think that's fair to say that, like, we are behind in times, but when our communities have been colonized, and that's going to impact us for generations. I mean, our indigenous communities here as well, we have a lot of stereotypical responses towards them, but they are going through, very similar like us, a lot of barriers that some of the community members are unable to break, just like for us. So I think there has to be compassion, but we are in the world of education at the palm of our hands, our phones. So we are blessed on one hand. I mean, a lot of it, sometimes it feels overwhelming. So I think it's fair to say, like, okay, fine, let's break these barriers. But at the same time, I was literally at the gym, and there's this woman that she's about 67. We talk every now and then, and I saw her today. She had just come back from knee surgery, and she's a very fit lady, like muscles, like she's been working out for a long time. And only after 4 weeks, she's back at the gym. She's like, oh, this is, it's been hard. And we both talked about how, like, we also have to understand that movement for our parents and our grandparents, the reason why we do this is so that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, should we have to get surgery, should we fall on a snowy day, there's a quicker bounce back. Like this woman is in a lot of pain, but she's after 4 weeks able to be back at the gym and do light stuff. And she's like, when I had to sit in a room in the recovery, they do like classes for your knee surgery. She's like, I was worried for a lot of people sitting there, people that will not be able to bounce back, people that likely don't have movement in some kind of capacity. And I think that's where the shift has to be for us, is like, we're thinking of longevity now. We're not, we used to work out to look good. And now you even see the fitness industry saying, no, it's about feeling good. Right. So I think we're getting there, but we have to keep pushing the moments of, like you were saying, I don't want to post these reels, or I don't want to post this picture. That's some of that old stuff that's going to keep coming up. And we have to just kind of allow ourselves to fight that a bit, because it's going to be generations before we completely unlearn that. So maybe we can talk a little bit about body grief, because we're talking about this weight gain sometimes, and sometimes we have the grief, sometimes we have other hormonal stuff and whatnot. But regardless of the reason why, when our bodies change during these experiences, this other layer that shows up is this like grief of the body itself. So the body that maybe we used to have, for some it's before they had children, for some it's before hormonal shifts, maybe before an injury, whatever. So a lot of us grew up with our identity being attached to how we look. That's how people hire you. If you look hot, they're going to hire you. Social media, all these people tell us this all the time. So whether we want to believe it or not, it's ingrained in us. And I think that this is something that many people, particularly women, go through quietly. The shame around, God, okay, I don't want to talk about this, because then that means it's all about vanity, but which is fine. But I think, again, I just want to encourage, like, it's okay to openly share and start talking to, your sister, a friend, whoever we have these WhatsApp groups with. I'm going through this. I'm struggling with the body that I had and the body that's becoming, and I'm trying to unlearn it. Like, in the moment, this is how we break these cycles, is when we say, okay, I want to talk about this, and being around people that aren't going to say, get over it or whatever, that aren't judging us. So, what kind of messages do we want to leave our sons and daughters with? So for you, what do you say to those women or those people that are grieving their body quietly? What would you say to them at this time?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I always say this, for you to be able to be comfortable to sit with that thought. Like I said, when I said that thing out loud, like, oh my God, I hate my body, is to kind of take that pause, sit back, and really, what is it exactly that I'm hating? Is it the way I'm feeling when I look at it? Is it the way I feel when I eat a meal? It's all about that feeling when we are carrying the weight or not, or the grief. Just being more, again, being more curious and not accept that as your defeat. Like, things will happen, life will happen, experiences will be thrown at you. Life is not predictable as we think it is. It's not predictable. I'm going to be hit with menopause very soon, right? So for me to be able to study what it is, and how can I prepare myself? So again, strength training is not just because to look sexy or fit. It's more about bone density. It's more about when I'm taking that flight of stairs, do I have pain issue? My knee pain. When I had that knee pain while I was taking the stairs in my home, that made me think, I am 37. Why do I have that knee pain right now? It's not about having more toner body. It's really about what your bodies are signaling. And again, I would say to all the women, invest yourself. Get a Garmin watch, get anything, because our mind will gaslight ourselves and throw us back to that loophole saying that, whatever we're doing is not working. It's not working. Oh, it's been 1 month. It's not working. No, we need actual data. So we need a device that can actually back us up. And I would recommend Garmin, because it has that sleeping pattern. It has that HSV status. It has your strength training. It tells you so many data that's for me, it's like gold, because it's information, it's educational. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really well said. The information that helps us see the facts instead of in our own mind, looking at the mirror and saying all this stuff that's really not helpful.
No.
And we are constantly being evaluated. We evaluate each other, the too big, too small, too old, too soft. And I even this diet culture, I think it still exists. And often we're taught something like carbs are bad. Yet biologically, carbohydrates are fuel. We need them to support brain function, energy, even hormonal balance. But we've all been taught, you stay away from that, stay away from that. And so I think conversations about health can often reduce everything to willpower. What I said at the beginning, right? And you said, eat less, eat less.
Yeah.
And I just remember when my doctor 6 months ago, she put me on a diet and I was fucking starving. And what happened? I gained more weight. This is why I got in touch with my friend Vishal, because he works, he and Dr. Shafina Premji, I've had her on before too. They're partnering up. They're opening up the Milestone Clinic. It's a women's clinic, kind of the first innovative thing happening here in Calgary, where women can have their health needs met. Because sometimes when you go to the doctor, your doctor will say, you're not going to have that problem. It's too soon. They're not going to do the thorough blood work in the same way that all of us women are like, but I'm exhibiting other symptoms. Yeah. And so I just think, like, for you work with food even. Yeah. You must get, I would imagine, a lot of interesting conversations about, today's my cheat day or something. So you sit with that. So what kind of things come up for you with the food when you guys are in your sessions and your classes?
Yeah, no, first question I think people ask me, especially the ones who have known me before, is what kind of diet you're in? I'm like, what does diet mean to you? How about you tell me what that is? Yeah, because everybody carries their own definition. If diet means eliminating certain food to look good? No, that's not what I think diet is. And again, rice and carbs are in our DNA. It's in our DNA. We cannot. But I feel like just by reducing my portion of rice, what I tell them is I am actually eating more yogurt, more lentils, more legumes, more fruits. So I feel like it's not about taking out things. It's actually adding more things. There's so much beautiful things out there that we need to consume that are naturally given to us. So introducing to more exotic ingredients for them, but making it more accessible to them, right? So I that's why I talk about Bangladeshi cuisine, because we have so many vegetables that not a lot of people have access to. And so telling them the names, telling them simple ways to cook it in 10 minutes to, like, red spinach, for example. I made a reel about that. Red spinach has 20 plus different kinds of vitamins and antioxidants and all that goodness that are going to be way better than those pills that the doctors are giving you.
Okay. So that's the other thing, is this wellness industry, right? So there's no magic pill. There's a lot of even repercussions happening with Ozempic that people are not openly sharing, and the brave ones are coming out and saying, this is what effed up my whole system. And so this is a multi-billion-dollar, industry that does not care about our health. No. And so it's built around this idea that our bodies are problems to fix. So the diets, as we said, the detoxes, the supplements, and all these kinds of things. And even Vishal, he and I were talking, and I was like, okay, should I be taking certain supplements and stuff? And he's like, bro, you can get your supplements from this meal plan. So he's also helped me recalibrate with my eating as well. Yeah. And I cannot tell you how much carbs I have with the fat and protein, where before, like I said, I'm taught to shy away from that. And you're getting your iron, you're getting your magnesium, you're getting the things that you need, especially as a certain ages as we enter, where, okay, sleep is way more important than wearing crop tops to me now. So I'm going to do what I need to do to get that sleep. And so I think rarely do we go deeper than this wellness industry by saying, okay, what if our body isn't broken and it doesn't need to be fixed, but like, what if it's something a little bit about responding to what it's asking from us. Like if instead of, oh, just add in the supplement, lose the weight in this way.
Yeah.
What if we're responding in a way that our body is asking us from years and years and years of chronic stress that we've been, you know, ingesting and holding on to. So I think we have to have some kind of compassion shift for ourselves. The dialogue, as you and I are saying and talking, and changing the questions from, again, what's wrong with my body to what is it carrying? What is it telling me? Those kinds of shifts. And I think the guilt starts to go away as well when we wake up feeling guilty of like, I'm not skinny enough. And yesterday I ate this thing that I shouldn't have ate. And all of that, our body is processing the guilt that we're carrying of having too much weight or not enough or whatever. So when we think about the carrying of the stress, the grief, the responsibility, the silence and all that, again, body's not failing us, our body is protecting us. Like looking back at your own learnings, particularly in the grief process that you're learning with going to that place, sitting with it, working through the grief of your loss of your dad, what would you add? What would you add to this conversation that maybe we haven't quite talked about yet?
Yeah, just like, I guess these are some of the few strategies that I had. So we already talked about the tuning into your body's signal. And I remember going into this, there's this very popular phrase that happens among our community when everybody comes together to eat. It's if someone says, no, I will not like to eat that fried food, there's always that one person that will say, oh, nothing's going to happen if you have it today. Just pop that pill at home when you go back home. Yeah, no, I think we all socially have this responsibility. And this is why I will create another video where we're discussing about what not to say to others, because we don't realize how much gravity it holds for someone else who's already struggling to bring herself to show up for herself. So we need to be more mindful how we talk to others, especially when it comes to dealing with weight gain or, you know, grief or whatnot. And just getting yourself regular blood work. I always have this thing that I tell my family, January, New Year's, blah, blah, blah. It's all great and amazing, but get your blood work done. Start the new year. Start the new year with like concrete data that your own body is already holding. You just need it on paper so you know where exactly you have to meet, what you have to work on, what you have to add into your diet so you can have a better looking report. And more mindful movement, mindful eating, breath work. So I started doing hot yoga, by the way. That's one thing I noticed. I was in an assumption that hot yoga would actually increase my blood pressure. Like it won't be good for my hypertension. But no, it lowers blood pressure. So that's another thing that I noticed. So again, being open to trying new things. Just because something worked in past few years, it doesn't mean that like you said, our body goes through so many phases. So tuning into it and see, maybe you need something else. Maybe you need something else to release and just being more open-minded like that.
Well, even just the stretching part, whether it's hot or not, there's a lot of talk now about stretching is the new working out. And as when you're younger in your 20s, maybe in your 30s, when you're working out, you don't maybe need it as much, even though you should. But you definitely get to 40s, 50s and higher. It's a necessity. Your body requires it. And on top of it, the release that comes out, you know, when you see the steam on concrete, you know, on a cold day, that's what sometimes comes out of our hips and our shoulders and things too. So it is exactly that. Yeah, you don't have to go hard and do this HIIT kind of training. It could just be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes of stretching. As you said, being attuned to that. So I do want to add that number one thing that I like personally every day on a everyday basis I work on. Like I practice that every day, which is, believe it or not, it's breath work. Yeah, totally. Like somatic releases, absolutely.
Like literally, us as a human, we all know how we all breathe all the time when we survive. But even as simple as reminding ourselves to breathe during a stressful situation, like cooking, managing, you know, taking the 2-3 kids out of the door, that's so stressful. Putting on their shoes, stressful. Putting them to bed, stressful. But at that moment, reminding yourself to breathe and take that pause and breathe, have been life-changing for me, just saying.
So it's so funny. On my laptop, this is the reminder that I have.
Yes. Yes.
I have it right here. Sometimes I forget too, but I wholeheartedly agree with you. With we hold it in and we don't let it out, and just breath and teaching our children the basics of like in and out, because anyone that maybe has had a kid and has had to go through labor, we know how important breathing through some of those contractions, right? Like that's the only thing that gets you through. So that is like always a good reminder. But sometimes we feel like we have to go through these drastic things to do that. But no, it's a daily reminder of let it out. It's get toxins of in and out. So these are things that don't require crazy amount of endurance. But I think you said this earlier, it's that 80-20, but what's in between? It is a huge part of not just even on a mental level, but also feeling the worth. And I remember one of your episodes, you talked about you feel like you're worthy to even have a hygiene routine and taking care of yourself in that way. And I love that, because I think a lot of women, a lot of people don't feel worthy enough to give themselves that time. You mentioned earlier in this episode, even like it's okay to use that word selfish, right? We're taught as a culture, oh, that's terrible. But we have to take care of ourselves in whatever way that is. And it's not the material ways of buying the makeup, buying the expensive clothes. Gone are those times now. We actually have to look within, because even that, going back to that picture of posting, sure, I could have had the body that I wish I had or that I used to have, but it matters not, because if on the inside there's grief, there's all these things that I'm fighting, the outside means nothing. So I think sometimes we forget and only want the shell to look a certain way, and the inside is the part that's rotting or it's blooming. So I think we have to decide, right? So maybe even just like as we wrap up, again, we talked a little bit about kids. So as we're raising our kids, what does teaching them about health, if you haven't talked about this earlier, what would you add, and what does it look like for you and your husband and the responsibility of teaching them about health?
Yeah, it's really by modeling. Honestly, we can lecture them, we can educate them all our life, but I think the greatest impact is how we carry ourselves around them. So to be regulated. So me and my husband, both of us seek therapy, both of us constantly working on regulating our nervous system, having healthy coping mechanism. And that itself is a model for our kids. We cannot be looking like we're rushing while cooking and taking 2-minute showers and expecting our kids to be relaxed and make that simple decision as, what do you want for breakfast? We want to model that but it is, at the end of the day, we need to be regulated. We need to get used to slow movement. And he was the one who was like telling me, why do you take a 2-minute shower? Like, you don't have to catch anything, right? And it's true. When I was washing dishes, I was washing like this. And I'm like, why do I have to do that? Now he got me these headphones. I just put it on and I'm just happily reflecting and washing the dishes as slow as I can. Like, there is no rush. Our body's nervous system is so highly alerted, and it's that constant reminder that we need to slow down. And our kids are going to see that, and it will reflect on how they carry themselves. So that's all I want to say.
It's such a good point, and it just makes me think of my best friend. She's been on a couple episodes, Mina, and she always talks about, sometimes it's like the moments will come to you in the day when you're pumping gas, when you have to fold laundry, these tasks that are already set in the day that you have to do. And those are moments where you're not doing anything but pumping gas. That's when you can have a mindfulness moment, breath work, as you're saying. You know, laundry is very meditative. You're saying washing dishes. She loves washing dishes and folding laundry. And I was like, why? You're so weird. And when she talked me through it, I was like, oh yeah. And now I like look forward to folding laundry too. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, this is my moment in the day where I can just fold and be present and work through whatever it is. So I think sometimes again, like you think you have to search for those, but those moments are actually already there. And so we can utilize them. So
100%. And again, it all goes back to relearning that, right? Growing up, me being the oldest and I had 5 other younger siblings, I was responsible to do all their laundry. I was responsible to wake all of them up for their school while I was a child. So being that parentified daughter, you carry that within yourself and you start showing these even in your married life. And so that's when you're like, oh, wait, no one's holding that gun on me right now to wake them all up. They can all it's that relearning part that takes time. But once you recognize it, there's no going back.
That's just it. It's like what you've unlearned, you're like, now I can't. It's so true. So maybe the question again isn't why is my body changing, but it's more about, okay, what stories is my body holding? And I wonder if that's part of some of the healing process. And I wonder if that's somewhere in how your story and your journey of working through the grief and working through some of the hardships that you've endured growing up. And, now you're being rewarded. Your body's like, girl, you took care of me. Let me take care of you. Let me shave a couple pounds off for you. Let me help you walk longer, the things that you love to do. And so it's like you reward your body rewards you. And so I think, it's like recognizing, okay, what stories is my body asking me to go back and explore or whatnot?
100%.
So, as you know, we do MFUs. We'll do one today too. So as we're wrapping up, is there something that you want to put your middle fingers up to today, my friend?
Oh, yeah. Middle fingers up to all the diets.
Yeah.
All that fades, all that. I think there's a lot of terms for that. There's so many different kinds of fades and like trends I see online. Yeah, no, none of that. Everyone is unique. Everybody's body requires different things. It's really about you yourself processing that. So middle fingers up to all these information being bombarded to us on social media with AI images, especially.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's 100%. I mean, even on this record, if we wanted to, we could use the filters to make us look a certain way. So that's just on this basic thing. So when we're watching these TikToks and these sorts of reels and people's fake ass stories, and by fake I mean like, oh, everybody's so perfect. No, that's not the accuracy. That's just a snapshot in someone's moment of their time. And like the real stuff is these kinds of conversations that we're all willing to have. And they do make us feel lighter. They do make us want to commit to ourselves in a different way as opposed to just 100%. Holding it. So I always am grateful for any kind of conversation, whether it's being recorded or not with you. Yeah. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with? The last words will be yours, my friend, before we close out.
No, I think man and woman, we all can. Remember, we don't want to just focus and dwell on the damage, because damage, whether we intended or not, or environmental or our genetics or our childhood, there's always room for repair, and dwell on more of what we can do to bring change, because change brings change. And we're all privileged being in North America right now, seeing what's going on around the world. We are privileged, and we should do something with that privilege and that voice and continue sharing your story. So just like you, mine and yours, everybody has their own stories, and they should just start being vulnerable and share their goddamn stories, because it's going to help one person or the other. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for being here today. This is one of those It's Good to Gup Shup moments with MFU and Shuraya. If you like this conversation, if you want to add to it, these are all door openers. We're just starting to have these. So reach out to us. We are more than happy to come back and keep having those conversations. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much.